I just got this little book of notes, but there's this Nisargadatta thing from one of his annotated books. I forget what one, but he's asking somebody here. He's asking somebody, after listening to my talks, do you acquire knowledge, or is whatever knowledge you had being dissolved? So Nisargadatta Maharaj is asking, because he used to give all these talks, of course, in his attic at his place. After listening to my talks, do you acquire knowledge, or is whatever knowledge you had being dissolved? The person answers, it's being dissolved. So to me, this is points out a beautiful part of this whole thing of not to. Whatever is trying to acquire knowledge and get it or get somewhere, that ain't going to get where it's trying to get. So let's call where it's trying to get open listening or peace. Let's just say peace. Yeah? The mental system, which is constantly yapping about trying to get and I'm going to become something. Yeah? How does that feel in your experience? Well, it feels like you're constantly yapping about spiritual seeking and getting somewhere, and I'm looking to become something. So I'm looking to become peaceful, let's say, or I'm looking to become kind, or I'm looking to become mean, yeah? Whatever the becoming is. So the head is always making that move, meaning you as a body are always making that move. And when it comes to spirituality, that move is like the big move. I'm going to become, I got to mark this thing, or it's going to get lost. I'm going to become something. Yeah? So how am I going to do that? I'm going to do it through knowledge. So I'm going to read every book, and I'm going to read every idea, and I'm going to go listen to everything that I can possibly listen to so that I can gain knowledge to become peaceful. But Nisargadatta is pointing out here, when you go to his talks, or did, he's dead now, when people went to his talks, were they acquiring knowledge, or was that knowledge being dissolved? And the person goes, it's being dissolved. That's the whole point. So the whole movement of getting knowledge and becoming more and working harder obviously is not going to work in the currency of peace. Or let's say becoming what you are. Or self-realization. Self, small s self, like the one from the recovery book, that never gets realized. Jay doesn't realize anything, really. If anything, Jay is very confused about this life and this world. And in my experience, what I've noticed is the less Jay that's involved, the better or smoother this goes. The more Jay that gets involved, the rougher this experience goes. So the more knowledge that Jay gets is not a good thing, really. Maybe knowledge about, I don't know, instruments or something might be helpful. But as far as knowledge about becoming peaceful and spirituality, whatever that might mean, it gets worse the smarter I seemingly think I am. So the point here is that you are not the knowledge getter. In Buddhism, they call that the storehouse, the mental system being the storehouse. So the mental system, the sense of individuality, is collecting all of these nuggets of knowledge in order to use it. Yeah? Use it how? To get out of suffering. Yeah? Or the other big one is to try to be better than other people, really. I'm going to gain a bunch of spiritual knowledge, and then I'm going to be better than you. Yeah? Which is funny, because that is two-ness very loudly. So the idea that I'm going to gain spiritual knowledge to become something, the whole point of the message of not to and listening is you are already what you're looking for. So the peace you're trying to become as a person, a person cannot become that peace, because that is already what you are. So the knowledge attaining, it's so good because it saves so much time and money. But the obtaining of knowledge, or let's say going to endless retreats, or spending 9 hours a day on an app where you think you're going to hear something that's finally going to make Jay stop suffering. But the point of this whole thing is you are not what is suffering in the first place. You can hear that talking all day, the head. You can hear it yapping on and on and on all day about trying to become things and trying to obtain knowledge, which is no problem really. But when it comes to becoming peaceful, how can an anxious system become peaceful? The mental system is an anxious system. Yeah? It moves constantly and it changes constantly. It's like music in a way. But if you're living as it, it's very disharmonic because there's this note here and then that note there. And these two notes don't seem to resonate. And then this note is constantly in search for other notes, other people or situations or whatever that it can resonate with constantly. But the head is seeing itself as a permanent fixed note. So Jay sees himself as a permanent thing which doesn't change, yet he's seeing a bunch of changing things. Now the head is taking itself to be an unchanging permanent thing, but it is also changing. So it can never seem to get perfect resonance with somebody else or something else because both factors are changing all the time. That is duality. There's not going to be a state of stabilized peace in that because everything is changing. And it's all cause and effect. And if you're in a long-term relationship or a short-term relationship, you will know. Because there doesn't seem to be a fixed state of perfect harmony. Unless you want to lie about it. There's a constant coming and going, yeah? So, Nisargadatta says, when you listen to me, are you obtaining knowledge or is what you know being disintegrated? And it's being diminished, is the point. Because the one who went to Nisargadatta to get knowledge, that person is not that person. As a body, they are that person, and that body is trying to obtain knowledge. And Nisargadatta is saying you're not that body. But the more you listen to it, the more you're going to be on the chase to obtain knowledge and become something. And constantly try to become peaceful as a system which is ever changing and cannot be peaceful. That system is called Jay, or Cindy, or Susan, or Mark, or whatever your name is. That system is unstable and ever changing. Not because you did something wrong, but because it's an ever changing, unstable, dualistic system. The body and the mind, yeah. They're not going to stabilize into some peace. You can't gain enough knowledge. You can't do enough retreats. You cannot drink enough alcohol, and you cannot do enough drugs to stabilize in peace. I've tried. I've tried the spirituality and the alcohol. Both of them failed. Both of them really failed, yeah. So if you're listening to the mental system, you are going to be in movement. There's nothing wrong with that. We're not trying to stop that or destroy that. We're just pointing out what's going on. The mental system is always changing and moving. The one who sees the mental system, I know the mental system. That I is also ever changing and moving because it's part of the mental system. So it can't know, really. Because what it knows is it's taking to be an object. So I, Jay, know my thoughts. The thoughts are always changing, but I know that. Now that I thought is taking itself to be unchanging, and that's not true, because I am a thought. Now I am a thought that comes a lot, so it's very repetitive, yet it still comes and goes. It still comes and goes. If you're listening from that I thought, you are tied to the rest of them. And one of the big ones is I'm going to attain enough knowledge to get somewhere, to be peaceful and kind. Finally, every day when I wake up, I'm going to be completely kind. I tried that. It failed very badly. And when it failed, it put me in a really bad spot because I feel that I had failed. But I was not seeing that what had failed is what you're not, what I'm not, yeah? The mental said Jay failed at becoming ever compassionate and kind because Jay is a dualistic judgmental system. Not because there's something wrong with Jay, but that's the system, yeah? So when it comes to spirituality, that system wants to gain knowledge and put it in its little garage, which Buddhism calls the storehouse. And it thinks if I gain enough knowledge and I do enough this and this and this and this, then I will stabilize in kindness. But that's not how this thing works. It gets sick. It's a judgmental thing. That's how it operates, yeah? So it's beautiful to know that when people went to Nisargadatta Maharaj, who's considered like one of the greatest, one of the goats of non-duality, yeah? He was saying that gaining of knowledge is going to fail completely. Because what is gaining knowledge can never become what you already are. And you can hear the mental system constantly talking about gaining knowledge and becoming something. That's the point. What I notice a lot when I talk to people, even like when I do embodiment stuff with people, is that, or like psychedelics, for instance. So like I know a lot of people who do psychedelics, yeah? Or whatever. At the end of all of that, if there's still a you there, which there is a sense of you, there's a thought me there for sure, yeah? But if you're tied to that thought me as being an independent, constant thing, like J, I am a constant, independent thing from everything else, yeah? If you're tied to that, you're going to listen to everything that comes after it, which is everything. So all the thoughts are going to be your thoughts, the senses are going to be your senses. Now that's being presented to you all day, yeah? The point is the listening part. Like I know people who have done tons and tons and tons of stuff, yeah? But when the head goes off because it meets some event in life that makes them emotionally distraught or whatever, when the head goes off, they listen to it immediately. It doesn't matter how much they've done, they go off. Yeah? And I've seen it in a bunch of different things. Meditation, embodiment stuff, psychedelics, blah, 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 blah. On and on, yeah? If you're listening to the mental system, it doesn't matter how much you do, when it goes off, you're going to go off. And then it's going to put you in this position, this is what happened to me, where then I failed again. Now, the only reason you would follow the mental system is if it was yours. Meaning, if that's what you were, if that's where you started, then you would listen to it. Yes? You would listen to it. So why would you listen to a bunch of thoughts and emotions? You would listen to them based on the idea that they were yours. So there's a you there, yeah, who owns and is having and is doing, most importantly, the thoughts and emotions. There's a me, and then there's all of this doing. So I am the doer of all of these thoughts and emotions, which would tie me completely to the thoughts and emotions. So when the thoughts and emotions start screaming, I am going to listen to them because they're mine. You see? Pop. So are the thoughts and the movements the problem? Is that where suffering starts? No, because that's ever changing for sure. It's this sense of me being the listener, the one who listens to the thoughts. If I am identified as that, I am tied to that contents. Then when those thoughts and emotions go off, which they're going to, because they're ever changing and they're based completely on cause and effect with the rest of the world, when I listen to those, I'm caught. Yeah? So that would be completely based on the me, being the thinker, taster, toucher, feeler, seer, listener. Listener. Is a big part. Listener. Yeah? If I'm taking myself to be this, then I'm following that, taking myself to be that. That puts you in a weird spot, man. So the real inquiry is who is listening to the thoughts. When your head says that, you can hear it. So obviously you are before that, not as a body. Now all of those thoughts and emotions which you feel you're doing, if you're not the you take yourself to be, then they seem to be happening without a doer, which is really the whole thing in Advaita or Chan, is that there is no doer. The thoughts, the ideas, the emotions are conditioned reactions. If you're tied to being the one who's listening to them, if you're the listener of those, you're going with them, based on the idea that you're doing them, and therefore going to stop them. Or if you go back to the Nisargadatta quote, you're caught in something that you think you're going to get out of. But the you that thinks they're going to get out of discomfort is what's completely in discomfort. The you who thinks you're going to get out of a dualistic thing and become absolute peace is a dualistic thing. And it cannot get out of itself. The whole point is you're not that thing, or a perceived thing. So the inquiry is into the one who is listening to the contents. The sense of me who is listening to the body and the mind. If you think that you are that sense of you are tied completely to the body and the mind. And the body and the mind are trying to get out of themselves, but they can't. Because self, small s self, as they say in recovery, cannot get out of itself. It's above its pay grade. Yeah. You are before all of that. So there's a pure or open listening, which the contents don't touch. The same way that the clouds don't touch the sky, whatever is going on in the body and the mind does not touch the open listening, which knows it. And then part of what is heard is this idea me, that I'm the listener to the body and the mind. And based on that, I'm going with the body and the mind. So there's no peace, really, identified as that. I mean, like, peace as a solution. There might be momentary calm. Yeah? But that calm is not going to last very long as soon as the body and the brain meet world. It's just not sustainable as a solution. Yeah? And in the world of recovery that I come from, we're looking for solutions because momentary calm is quite useless if after that I'm going to freak out and try to relapse or something. Yeah? Solutions. And as they would say in recovery, self-reliance is no good whatever, or self-reliance is what failed you. So relying on the mental system, on the sense of individuality, is what failed me. Yeah? I knew I was failing when I went into recovery because I was in recovery. Yeah? So when you're sitting in 12-step meetings because you can't stop drinking and you're super depressed, something's failing. Yeah? Something is failing. So at the start, it was me. I was failing. I am failing because I am listening to this system, which is crazy. But the system and the I are both of the system. The I is not separate from the mental system. It's completely part of it. So what was failing was the mental system and its conditioned, constant, repetitive responses to life. That's what was failing, yeah? So stop relying on that, and then this whole life goes better. Why would I be relying on the mental system, despite the fact that it's telling me insane things? Why would I be relying on that? Because I was taking it to be me. That's why. So when it would say crazy stuff, I would go with it because I thought that was me. But the focus for a long time was on the contents of J. It wasn't on the sense of me. So it was on what's being listened to. I thought I was going to change that conditioned contents of the mind and the body and make it pristine. I, J, am going to become the Buddha, let's say. That was it, because J was the problem, yeah? But the real problem was the thought me, was the sense of individuality. That is the real thing because it tied me to all of the J-ness, yeah? It never occurs to you that you can stop listening to your thoughts because the you who hears that is one of the thoughts, and the thoughts are not going to quit the thoughts. You are before all of that, yeah? So what is trying to get somewhere, that's not what you are. You're before all of that. You can hear it trying to get somewhere. You can hear the brain trying to get somewhere. All day, usually. And it's not a problem, but it gets addicted to it in the vicinity of spirituality. So the listening, what you are is before the idea of a listener. The listening is before the idea of being a listener. As soon as your head says me, which it's saying all day, and by the way, that me thought is completely self-centered. It cannot think in any other way than from its own position. Yeah? The me idea can only see from its own standpoint. And it can only see through its own knowledge, conditioned ideas from the past. That's the only way it can see. It can't see backwards or this way or that way. Yeah? If it hears a different idea or concept, the brain interprets that immediately. You're not doing that. The brain interprets it right away to make sense to itself. So now somebody else's concept is soaked in J. Again, you're not doing that. It's just the mechanism of the brain. Yeah? It can only see from its own viewpoint. It can't see behind or up or down. But you can see it or hear it seeing from its own viewpoint. You can hear it. Because open listening is everywhere. So it hears everything. It even hears the idea of me, the listener, trying to point to that way, that way, that way. This is my ideas, my beliefs. Pop, pop, pop. Yeah? So from that viewpoint, it's completely self-centered. J is a self-centered system. J does not get out of self-centeredness. But it's a self-centered system. Not because you're being self-centered. Yeah? Not because whoever here, and you're listening to this, it's not because you're being self-centered. You are a self-centered system. You can't get out of it. Yeah? And if you read like recovery book, Bhagavad Gita, whatever, it's all about becoming less self-centered. So the system, individual, can become a little bit less self-centered, but its formula is to look from self-centeredness. You can't deteriorate it completely. But if you're not what's self-centered and you hear that, like right now, then you can see that you can hear the head be self-centered. So you must be before that. You must be before that. Because you can hear it make its self-centered movements based all on me. You're not that me. You can hear your head say me. So who is listening to the me thought? As soon as your head says I or me again, you're off the mark, yeah? You can hear it. So eventually it's just kaput. There's no more question. Because you see, as soon as you ask who is listening to the me thought, who is listening, man. As soon as you ask that, you can hear it. So eventually you just stop asking the question. Because both the inquiry and what's being inquired about are not you. You're before that whole thing. Yeah? So the one who feels that they're inquiring into the thoughts and the thoughts are the same thing. You're neither. But the inquiry gets you back to that point. There's thoughts. Who's listening to the thoughts? I am. You can hear that. Who's listening to that? I am. I am. That's the circle, yeah? That is like the circle of self-centeredness that you call you. Well, you're not that, essentially. You can hear all of that. So rather than picking it up as the listener, you stay in the listening. How? Do I become listening? No. You negate what's being heard as what you are. You don't try to destroy it or hate it. You just don't touch it. And when you don't touch it, you see how the head distorts life from its own self-centered point of view. You can hear it doing it all the time. You can hear the head distorting it all day long. Yeah. So Nisargadatta, if you went to listen to him, you're not picking up knowledge. You're seeing that what's trying to get somewhere is heard. Therefore, you must be before it. Therefore, it would be very wise to stop constantly listening to what's being heard. Because as soon as you listen to the mental, it's got you. And sometimes it might be really nice and good, but other times, if you're being honest with yourself, it's probably not being that nice and good. And that can get a lot of us into a lot of trouble, especially if you come from the world that I come from. Because my head suggests a lot of distorted, crazy things. But you are before that, thankfully. All right. So if there's any questions, feel free to ask. Now that we've determined that there's no knowledge to gain, what is trying to gain knowledge? You can hear it happening right now. You can hear your head say, I get it. You can hear your head say, I'm never going to get it. You can hear your head say, I don't get it. You can hear all of that, yeah? You can hear the games that you're playing, essentially. Well, you must be before that. Which would not put you in the position of, I'm going to do a bunch of stuff. It would put you in the position of just sitting there. Huh? Yeah. Nancy. Florida. idea of no knowledge being gained. Here's the thing. What's gaining knowledge is a mental system which you are before. And then what the head will do with that is it will because it's dualistic, it's going to flip the other way. And then it's going to go, I'm not going to gain any knowledge. So this is sometimes, I've seen this before in my own thing. Okay, I'm going to get somewhere, yeah? And then I hear something like this, and then my head goes, okay, I'm giving up everything. But it's a dualistic movement, you see? So, by the way, when somebody asks a question, I'm not really talking to them. It's just something to bounce off of, yeah? So, I'm going to get a bunch of knowledge, and then I would hear, okay, you're not what's trying to get knowledge. And then my head would go, okay, now I'm not getting any knowledge, yeah? I'm not the movement, I'm going to get a bunch of knowing, and I'm also not the movement of, okay, I'm not getting anything. You see? That's a duality, and this is not two. So you can hear your head make both moves. This is the point in many ways. There's a big relief from that movement. Yeah? Okay, I'm not going to get any knowledge. And then your head will do the other one, which it will make the move, in my case, of like, I'm not going to do anything and be super lazy. But that movement is really a depressive movement in my experience. So that is like, that's really something. You're not the getting, and you're not the I'm not going to do anything. Yeah? This was both this like back and forth thing. You're not the system that's doing it. So the inquiry is, who's hearing the head when it wants to become something? I am. Who's hearing the head when it says, I'm not going to do anything? I am. So that I am is not the I am that Ramana Maharshi talks about. That I am is the sense of individuality. You're not even that. You're not even what's before that. So that's a beautiful thing in a way, because you can hear your head make both moves. Yeah? It's like, I always wanted to make money. I was like addicted to money. So that was a thing in recovery. And then I went my head goes the other way. Okay, now I'm giving up on money. But it's not that, you don't go either way, essentially. You stay with who is hearing that mental system. Me, but you can hear the me. So you don't go with that either. And that puts you in this like beautiful place of neutrality. And then what to do actually becomes quite obvious. Because the insanity of Jayness, pulling left and right, going here and there, that gets neutralized by not grabbing onto the idea of the me who's hearing it, yeah? And then you just go to work, usually. Or you just sit down and make sounds on your computer, or whatever the hell I'm going to do. Or you're going to do. But there is a big relief, for sure, in that you don't have to work to become what you are. Yeah? Because if you're like me, man, that took my life over for like a while. Tons of money, and like, it put me in a bad spot relationally a lot of times. That chasing, yeah. Addiction moves. It went from booze right to spirituality, and that was same addict, different substance, let's say. All right. Erwin, hey man. Erwin, aren't you also in Florida? Licensed therapist. Uh-oh. No road to recovery until you hear what your inner child is telling you. Yeah, maybe. I don't know about that. I'm not a licensed therapist. This is just about who's the one listening to the inner child. Yeah. In Advaita, if there's a me and there's the voice of an inner child, this is just a looking, that's a duality. And your what you are is before that duality. That's the whole thing. So I'm sure in embodiment stuff, there's the child, and that's where the conditioning is, and all of that for sure. But I'm just looking at what's before that. What's before that? That stuff is useful to see why my head sees the world the way it does, so that I can negate it as what I am essentially, because it proves how it's conditioned. That's the value of that. So it can step back into who's hearing the mental system and its conditioning. That's the real inquiry. Who is listening? Who is listening to the constant uh, movement of the head? The answer is always me. It can only be me. That me is taking itself to be a permanent individual thing. And when your head says me, it's saying body. So it's taking itself to be permanent, yet the thoughts are impermanent. But the me who's seeing the thoughts is part of the impermanence. And that's going to be ever changing. It just didn't work as a solution to me. Knowing about J forever still had me completely tied to the J. And then I tried to change J, and it just didn't work. It worked a little bit, like stopping drinking and doing crazy stuff got neutralized a little bit, but it wasn't like a lasting solution of peace. It wasn't that. It didn't. I had only one side of the duality was getting nullified or neutralized by the program, which was the mental system, but it was still urging and pushing, and I was still uncomfortable. Yeah. Based on the idea that I'm the one hearing it, yeah. And the thing about making the mental system peaceful is it's impossible, because it's a up and down, left and right frantic system. So if there's an idea that I, from before it, am going to make this body and mind stable, it's going to fail forever. And like, I'm kind of lazy, and I don't really want to do that forever. I don't want to constantly be chasing the mental system's games of left and right and up and down, thinking that it's going to stop in the middle, because it's not. It can't. It's impossible. And I'd rather just make bass drones and chant, really. Yeah. All right. If there's any other questions, feel free to ask away. Otherwise, maybe we'll wrap it up there for this evening. It's really something. I always took that what I heard, the mental, was what I am. And I never saw that how crazy it was when I was looking from it. When I was looking from the head, so when the brain would yap and yap and yap, and I'm looking from that, I'm not seeing how crazy it is. Really. I'm not, because I'm looking from it. Yeah? So I'm looking from that. But when you start to hear something that maybe you're not the mental, nor are you the one who's hearing it, meaning the listener, that's also heard from before it. You're aware of that sense of a listener, yeah? You really start to see how much it's changing and distorting what's happening. Right down to, like, you see a form and your head says bike, you know? Yeah. It's amazing. And awesome to see that I don't have to change that because I can't change it. That's just how the head fires. And just to be, not to have to grab onto it as what you are is such a it's such a relief. Nancy tracks and go over this stuff to you. Yeah, if you go on the website, Nancy, theskyisalwaysclear.com. Theskyisalwaysclear.com. All the writing and talks and music and everything's up there. Theskyisalwaysclear.com. Yeah. Is it the soul who was there before? Janet, that would depend, that question, from Southampton. If you're talking about soul from the Vedic, or let's say from Sankhya Yoga, so from the Hindu idea of soul, or just some idea of soul. So are you talking about soul through the Indian idea of a soul, like a Jiva Mukti, from like Sankhya Yoga Atman, or are you talking about soul like some other way? Because the soul from the yogic system would, to me, comes like from Sankhya Yoga, meaning like it's the highest individual sense of self, yeah. But what you are would be before that, because there's still a duality there, yeah. So I don't use the word soul so much. Okay, from the yoga system. I don't use that word so much because it gets very confused contemporary wise. But for those of you who know Sankhya Yoga or whatever, that's duality. That's a Dvaitic philosophy. So soul is like the highest, is the Atman or the Jiva Mukti, meaning that the soul is free or not grasping onto the contents of experience, meaning the body-mind world, yeah? But in Sankhya or Dvaitic Yoga, the soul would be where you stop. But in Advaita, there is no sense of individuality separate from the Absolute. So the Jiva Mukti idea is kind of kaput. Meaning like the one who becomes free, like I become free, I am the soul. It's still in a duality of manifest and unmanifest. I don't know if that makes sense, but I don't really use the word soul, I guess. But in recovery, they use the word spirit. Spirit. Yeah. But you could, I don't know, I like the sky and the clouds thing, you know? Like the sky exists whether the clouds are there or not, but the clouds cannot exist without the space of the sky. So obviously, the clouds are not self-existent. While the body and the mind are like a cloud, and the space, which is knowing or hearing, that is self-existent, but the contents of the body-mind world don't exist without that space. So obviously nothing can be separate from that space, meaning all is one or not two. So whatever pops up as two-ness, that's not the open space of the sky, that's the clouds playing. That's the clouds jumping back and forth, yeah. 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 The idea of being a listener would be a cloud. So there can be the highest state, let's say, of cloudness in Sankhya Yoga would be the soul or the Atman, yeah? The highest state of cloudness. Well, Advaita Vedanta is saying you're still not the cloud. So really the soul idea also gets negated, because there is no thing called an individual. There's a sense of individuality. The highest of that is the Atman. But you're not that. So they kind of kaput that in many ways. It's like in Buddhism, like in Chan Buddhism, emptiness, seeing that nothing is self-existent, would put you in this kind of sitting spot of like, I'm the open space who knows that everything is empty, yeah? But the one who knows emptiness, that's still not what you are. So there's still mind there, as they would say. I don't know. I don't want to, the language is going to get misinterpreted a little bit. Just stay with the clouds in the sky. The thing is, language is dualistic, so you can only talk about two-ness, right? Talking about what you are is kind of useless. It's like talking about open listening in a way is useless, but let's talk about what's heard. Because you can hear the I thought, you can hear the me thought, and you listen to it. Or sorry, you listen to what comes after the me thought, based on the idea that you are the me, but you can hear the me thought. So it's much easier for us to talk about what's heard rather than the hearing itself. Because you are the hearing. You can hear what's trying to become hearing, which is you. Yeah? You can hear that. So rather than going with it, you start to see this, okay, maybe I'm not that, and it's, rather than going that way and trying to obtain knowledge, you start negating knowledge, essentially. You can only land in what you are. Your thought on our physical body having its own consciousness. I don't really know what that would mean. The physical body having its own consciousness. Consciousness would be the sense of individuality. So when the head says I, that is the sense of individuality. That is consciousness as a body. Huh. You mean like the physical body knows stuff, let's say. Oh, okay. I don't see how that... The thing is about that, the nervous system's separate than our mind. That's a very Western idea. So, in Eastern philosophy, the body cannot be separate from the mind because there is not two. There is no two thing. Yeah? So you can't separate those two things because they're actually not two. They're only two as far as language is considered. But like in Buddhism, for instance, this idea is seen as completely ridiculous. It is completely ridiculous. It's like people want to relax the body, but the mind is super anxious. So like I teach yoga classes. This is what I see a lot in yoga classes. People do tons of work on their body, but they're absolutely completely anxious in the brain, yeah? So the body can never relax if the brain is anxious. That's just how it goes. Now, if the body is all messed up, the brain goes off. So you'll notice, like, when you get sick, the brain goes off, yeah? They can't be separated. These two things cannot be separated. I see you're right. Just give me a second. I'm just going to read this. Why is communicating to me lately and it's been very intimate. Now, see, the organism of body being separate from you, that is self-centered duality right there. So you're seeing something very beautiful in a way. As I tell my students, when the mind is racing, the body is bracing. Yeah. So The you who's hearing the organism, Nancy, that is also not what you are. But you're into a duality there. And to me personally, that duality is a bit of a dangerous space to walk in. Because there's a sense that I'm here and the body is sending me a lot of good and or bad messages. Now, that's never going to stabilize. One day it'll be a good message, the next day it's a bad message. Yeah? So the sense of me here, listening to the body here, has me in a two-ness. That, to me, the one who's aware of the body, you're not that either. So you're even before that. And you can hear your head dictate to your body or listen to your body. Now there's a bunch of ideas, like if I think a certain way, my body will react a certain way. So if I constantly think, soften, 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 let's say, yeah, then my body will react that way, which maybe is true. But the question really is, can you always think positive? Now, if you're not the doer of the mental system, then the answer is completely no. Because it's dualistic. Yeah? So the idea that the body is communicating to you, there's nothing wrong with any of that, but it's got you into a two-ness. It's got a you who's the dictator of the body. Now, when it comes to peace, or even the body softening, yeah? If there's always a you here softening the body, you're not ever going to get the drop of a solution. Because there's always going to be a you and a body, and those are going to be considered two separate things. Now, the bondage of self is really the bondage of the body. I am bonded to the body. Take this a different way. The I, who's bonded to the body, wants to get out of that body. That is a lot of spiritual seeking. I want to get out of this body. Now, that seems like, okay, now I'm going to change the body, or I'm going to listen to the body, based on the idea that I'm going to get the body into a state where it's going to be good, and I'm going to keep it there. That's impossible. The reason I bring this up is because this can get to a point in my life where there's only a couple solutions to get out of this body, and at that point, spiritual practice was not one of them. It was drink or die, essentially. Those were the options that I had to get out of this body. Because the bondage of self is I am in a body. Now the I thought, the me and the body are seen as two separate things from a Western sense. But from an Eastern sense, this is a ridiculous idea. Because there is not two. So as soon as the body, something happens to the body, the brain collects it and claims it, and now there's a you there with a body. Yeah? So the body and the brain cannot be separated. And then, it goes into this nervous system and this and this and this and this and then blah, 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 blah. So, yeah. The point is, the you who sees the body is not separate from the body. But it thinks it is. This is the point. The me thought thinks it is separate from world and body. And you'll know this if you're being honest with yourself. The body telling you intimate things, giving you messages, great. You're starting to maybe realize some of the conditioning of the system, yeah? It's like when I do embodiment stuff, people, okay, I can't feel my pelvis. Why? And then memories and shit come up. This happened, whatever. You see the conditioning of the system. Great, yeah? But the whole point of not two is that they're not two. So when your head is hearing the body, it is taking itself to be independent of body. That puts you into a two. That is the main movement of the mental system being self-centered. I am separate from the body. But the I thought is completely not separate from the body. The point is, what you are is before the whole thing. And when you don't grasp at the body, nor the one who's hearing the body, then you really see very subtly how engaged the body and the brain are. And you will give up on trying to separate them, and you will also probably give up on trying to change and stabilize the body, because you'll see that it's ridiculous. And you'll do the same thing hopefully with the brain. Because you'll see that this is an interdependent system, and it's dualistic, and it's ever changing, both the body and the mind. Right down to, you can see when the thought I goes, there's a sense to grasp onto it. You'll feel the body. It'll pull up. The sense it will come up, like literally upward in the body, and the tension will be pop as soon as it's there. So you can see your head, see the body as separate. So rather than go with that, if you can hear something, that ain't what you are. And you can hear your head do that. Now you'll hear your head also say, this is good and this is bad. And based on that, it's going to try to flip these two moves. Yeah? And there will be a constant chase based on that. But who is hearing the head? You're back to the me. And you're hearing the me thought. Yeah. Choosing the state I went to cultivate. Choosing what quality I wish to embody and inhabit. Maybe. I don't know. But to me, that's like skillful means in a way, you know, which are useful as a body, but you're still not the body. So if it helps the body to feel good, to try to think positive stuff all the time, then go for it, man. That hasn't worked for me, because I just saw that the head couldn't stay positive in this happy state all the time, yeah, or let's say peaceful state, and I thought I was doing something wrong, and I wasn't. It's just a dualistic thing. So, the skillful means can be useful, you know, like listening. Actually, meditation is a skillful means. You sit down, you relax the body, and you start to just listen, yeah? And then you start to inquire into these are all skillful means. They're not for what you are, yeah? They're for the body and the mind to calm the thing down. Yeah. So, if skillful means work to settle the body, great, but you're still not a body. Yeah. So the thing would be to stay on the I thought. To stay on the I thought. Who's the one that wants the body to be this way? Who's the one that wants the body to be this way? Who's the one who thinks that they know the body? The answer is always me. And as soon as your head says me, you can hear it. Because you are the ever-present open listening, which is hearing it. Yeah? And then eventually, you're going to stop going with the me thought and all the other thoughts that come after it. And in my experience, it's not that I don't care about the body. I maintain the body, do yoga, try to keep the spine good. But the idea that I'm going to make it a certain way, I don't care about that anymore. Like it's starting to get older now, and that's great. I don't care. Because the me who's trying to change it wants it to be different. You just give up on grabbing onto that. Because you see, one, that it's not there. There is no thing there called me, which is trying to manipulate the whole situation. And then you start to enjoy how the thing unfolds. Yeah. Yeah. So you have to stay on the I thought. Who's the one that hears all these ideas about body? I do. Well, that I thinks it's independent. You think you're independent both of body and of world. The you that you're identified as. But there is no you thing there. So you stay on that. Who is the one who wants to change the body? I am. Who's the one that hears the thoughts? I am. Who's the one trying to manifest something different in the body? I am. If you're not that I, that would be good to know. And you can hear that. You can hear the I. Right now, when your head says me, there's something aware of that. Yeah? There's something aware of that. The I thought, the sense of individuality, thinks that it is God. It thinks it is the ultimate subject, and it's completely not. You're before that. You're before that. And if you really sit into that, over time you give up on the games of the head and the body. Yeah? You give up on the games of the head and the body. And then life goes on. You still teach and do whatever you're doing because you're not the doer of it in the first place. You're what's hearing all of this stuff. That's why you can tell me about it. Yeah? Except you're identified with it through the idea that it's you, and it's not you. That's the whole point. Mm-hmm. You can hear your head trying to get stuff. Trying to get stuff. Amazing, man. That's yoga to me. Inquiring who is listening, who's looking. Yoga to me is you don't care about poses anymore, yet you keep doing poses. Yeah. All right. I think let's wrap it up there for tonight. And